Speaker Sivasankar Babu. Bhadragiri sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Please start.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon to all. Good afternoon, today's speaker Sivasankar Babu, sir. So I welcome all on behalf of the new Telengana History Group. We call it as Kota Telengana Charitra Brindam in Telugu, sir. So basically, it is new Telengana History Group. We are a group of interested people in history. We are just working together towards identifying the new history places and other historical remnants in Telangana state. And please let me introduce Sivasankar Babu, today's speaker, esteemed speaker, Sivasankar Babu sir. Sivasankar Babu sir is a techno-functional banker in. So I'll be introducing in English because sir is from Tamil Nadu. So I'll also give a small Telugu brief about him later. So a techno-functional banker with a 39 plus years of financial services industry, with a passion in mentoring and travel and spreading heritage awareness. So there are certain achievements on part of sir. So let me read them. So after 15 years in Indian Overseas Bank, he worked in ITES industries in companies like Exaware, Wipro, and Capgemini for 20 years. And for the past 20 years, sir is doing domain consulting through his own company, Techno Bankers. He also handles mentoring sessions for the final year of Bachelor of Engineering students for campus placements for leading institutions like SBM University, National Engineering College, Kovilpatti, and St. Xavier's Catholic College and Nagarkoil. So then he's also supporting final year placement guidance for IIT Chennai. Then IIT Chennai sessions are industry expectations, CV preparation, and mock interviews. And as I told you, I am a IIT Chennai, IIT Madras alumni. I did my MTech there in 1993-95. And he's also renewing his passion in Indian history. It's ancient commerce, temple architecture, and epigraphy and iconography by attending seminars and reference books. He has traveled extensively through Tamil Nadu or the land of temples, and these are documented in detail in his Facebook tour albums. Then Sir is a part of Tamil Heritage Trust, THT, which focuses on spreading heritage awareness. He is one of the THT trained docent guide and handles Alumna Ravai, the heritage training for teachers. He is involved in THT site seminars, trips to heritage locations for 6 to 7 days, with 25 plus preparatory lectures by participants in a prior 6 months, and a compilation of them as a tour guide book for on-site appreciation. Covered Bhuvaneshwar, Badami, Sanchi, Kanchi, Thanjavur, and Sanchi, and so far. So he also
excuse me, sir. If you can put Control L, it will come to full screen. Control L in the PDF.
That's okay, sir. Am I visible on full screen, sir?
Yeah, it is not in full screen. It is in now it is full screen.
Yes, sir. So then, sir, also there's presentations on heritage subjects like subjects in groups like Stapatya Kala Parishad, Tirupati, IITM Nellore, CCVA Vijayawada, University of Kerala, etc. And videos are available on YouTube and Babu for Heritage. His YouTube channel, Babu for Heritage, is a go-to place for heritage videos where curated content is available under 50 plus categories. He is an incredible India tourism facilitator for Government of India Ministry of Tourism, and sir has completed certification on old scripts like Tamil, Brahmi, Vatteluttu, then Grantham to read inscriptions and PG diploma in archaeology from International Institute of Tamil Studies, Chennai, and TNOU Chennai. Now I request sir to take over. Before that, I request Siva Nagi Reddy sir to make a brief introduction, and then sir to take over to give the lecture on today's subject. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bhadragiri Garu, for giving me few minutes to again introduce in the sense to give a few more details to our august audience who are very much interested and open to learn new things and to participate in such talks. Sivasankar Babu, for the benefit, sir, enanga naan Telugulo sollatumaanga konjam neram.
Yes, sir.
Yes. எதுக்காகனா இதுல சில பேரு ரொம்ப யங் பார்ட்டிசிபென்ட்ஸ் எல்லாம் இருக்காங்க அங்க. அவங்களுக்கெல்லாம் நான் தெலுங்குல சொன்னா நல்லா புரியும், அதனால.
Yes sir, I understand. Let us
yes, thank you very much.
Sir, எனக்கு தெலுங்கு தெரியாது சார்.
அப்படியா?
நாகேஸ்வரம்.
ரொம்ப நல்லது. அப்படி இல்லைங்க, நான் இவங்களுக்காக தெலுங்குలో சொல்லడానికి சில நேரம் ஒரு 5 మినిట్ అపరం.
ప్లీజ్ చెప్పండి సార్.
ముందుగా నాగేశ్వరరావు గారు వచ్చారు, వెల్కమ్. నాగేశ్వరరావు గారు, చాలా సంతోషం. హరగోపాల్ గారి తరఫున నేను మీకు స్వాగతం పలుకుతున్నాను. అయితే ఇవాళ మనకు చాలా సంతోషించకరమైన విషయం ఏమిటి అంటే, కొత్త తెలంగాణ చరిత్ర బృందం ఒక విశాలమైన హృదయం ఈ రకంగా తెలుస్తోంది. ఏమిటి అంటే, కేవలం తెలంగాణ చరిత్రకే పరిమితం కాకుండా భూభాగం విశాలం, తర్వాత పరిశోధన కూడా సువిశాలం అన్న ఈ 2 సూత్రాల ప్రకారం మిగతా వాటిని కూడా, ఇరుగు పొరుగు చరిత్రలను కూడా అవగాహన తో మనం అధ్యయనం చేయటం అవసరం అన్న నేపథ్యాన్ని గుర్తించి, కేవలం తెలంగాణ వాళ్లే తెలంగాణకు సంబంధించిన కాకుండా ఇతర రాష్ట్రాలు, ఇతర ప్రాంతాలకు సంబంధించిన అనేక అంశాలకు సంబంధించి మాట్లాడటానికి వీళ్ళు పూనుకోవడం హర్షించదగ్గ విషయం. ఈ విషయంగా ఈ రోజు శివశంకర్ బాబు గారు అని ఆయన ఒక ఆయన బ్యాంకర్. ఆశ్చర్యం వేస్తుంది అన్నమాట. ఆయన బ్యాంక్ లో పనిచేసేవాడు. ఎవ్రీడే హీ వాజ్ వెరీ మచ్ బిజీ ఇన్ కౌంటింగ్, రిసీవింగ్ అండ్ గివింగ్ న్యూ నోట్స్ ఓన్లీ, న్యూ సెక్షన్స్. But in spite of that, what happened, he switched over to history, then he switched over to art, architecture, archaeology, Indology and epigraphy, what not. The entire Indology he is very much interested. నేను అడిగాను ఆయన్ని, సార్ మీకు అసలు ఎలా ఇంట్రెస్ట్ వచ్చింది అంటే, బ్యాంకులో పనిచేసేటప్పుడు ఆయనకి బిజినెస్ ఎనాలిటిక్స్ అని ఒక సబ్జెక్ట్ ఉంటుందంట. అప్పుడు ఆయన బయటికి ఇన్స్పెక్షన్స్కి వెళ్ళినప్పుడు ఎనాలిటిక్స్ చేసేటప్పుడు ఒక విషయాన్ని ఇన్ని రకాలుగా మనం చూడొచ్చా అన్న ఉద్దేశంతో ఆయనకి చరిత్ర పట్ల అప్పుడప్పుడు న్యూస్ పేపర్ ఆర్టికల్స్ చూడటం, ఎవరైనా ప్రసంగాలు వినటం, ఎక్కడన్నా సెమినార్కి వెళ్ళటంతో ఆయనకి హిస్టరీ మీద ఇంట్రెస్ట్ పుట్టింది. వరలారు అంటారు తమిళ్లో. అట్లా ఆ ఇంట్రెస్ట్ పుట్టి తర్వాత ఏం చేశారు, న్యూస్ పేపర్ ఆర్టికల్స్. ఆ తర్వాత ఆయన వినేటప్పుడు he was very much fascinated by the book called The Cholas by K.A. Neelakanta Shastri garu. Then ఆయన చదివిన తర్వాత, ఇట్ వాజ్ వెరీ లాంగ్ ఎగో, సమ్ 75 years ago తెచ్చిన బుక్ కాబట్టి దాంట్లో చాలా గ్యాప్స్ ఉన్నాయి. ఈ గ్యాప్స్ ని ఎలా ఫిల్అప్ చేయాలి అని ఆయన ఏం చేశారంటే, ఇప్పటి వరకు చోళుల మీద జరిగిన పరిశోధనలన్నింటినీ ఒక చోట తెచ్చుకొని తనంతట తాను ఈ చోళుల కాలం, చోళుల కంట్రిబ్యూషన్, చోళుల దేవాలయాలు, శాసనాలు, అప్పటి సమాజం ముందుగా అదిగో అలా ఇంట్రెస్ట్, ఆసక్తి పెంచుకున్న తర్వాత, అరే చోళులకే ఇంత గొప్పతనం ఉంటే వీళ్ళు ఆల్ ఆఫ్ ఎ సడన్ రాలేదు కదా, వీళ్ళ ముందు మనకి పల్లవులు ఉన్నారు, అంతకుముందు కలభరాస్ ఉన్నారు, అంతకుముందు సంగమా లిటరేచర్ ఉంది, అంతకుముందు పాండ్య, చేర, చోళ ఇవన్నీ ఉన్నాయి. ఎట్లా వాట్ హ్యాపెండ్ ఇన్ హిస్టరీ అనే దాని మీద హీ హిమ్సెల్ఫ్ వెంట్ ఇంటూ సో డీప్ ఆఫ్ ద హిస్టరీ ఆఫ్ not only Tamil Nadu, entire South India. ఆ తర్వాత what happened after Cholas, చోళుల తర్వాత పాండ్యులు ఏం చేశారు, ఆ తర్వాత ఇన్ బిట్వీన్ పల్లవాస్, అప్పుడు పల్లవ, చోళ, రాష్ట్రకూట, ట్రైపార్టైట్ స్ట్రగుల్, పల్లవ, చాళుక్య అండ్ అదర్స్, అగైన్ వన్ మోర్ స్ట్రగుల్, why battles occurred. And he said very interestingly today that what we call is history written by different people belong to different regions. They write that Cholas won the war, then again Pallavas won the war, then Chalukyas won the war, Rashtrakutas won the war. Then what is the truth? Then he started looking at inscriptions, vatteluttu, grandheluttu. అంటే మీకు ఆ శాసనాల్లో రకాలు ఉంటాయి. అన్ని రకాల శాసనాలు ఆయన చదువుకొని నిజమేమిటో అక్కడ పెట్టుకొని అప్పుడు పూర్తిగా మొట్టమొదటి తమిళ్ హిస్టరీ అంతా పూర్తిగా తెలుసుకోగలిగారు. తమిళ్ హిస్టరీ ఈజ్ నాట్ జస్ట్ లైన్ ఆఫ్ అండ్ కింగ్స్ ఆఫ్టర్ కింగ్స్. నో, దే హ్యావ్ ఆల్సో కంట్రిబ్యూటెడ్ టు పర్పెచుయేట్ ద హిస్టరీ త్రూ monumental buildings like rock-cut caves, temples, sculptures, etc. Then Sivasankar Babuji started looking at so minutely, yes, the real journey of temple architecture of the land of the temples, Tamil Nadu. తమిళనాడులో ఇన్ని టెంపుల్స్ ఎట్లా వచ్చినాయి, ఎందుకింత మల్టీఫేరియస్ గా ప్రొలిఫరేషన్ అయినాయి, వాటిల్లో ఏమన్నా మార్పులు ఉన్నాయా, స్టీరియో టైపా అన్న ఉద్దేశంతో ఆయన అనేక రకాలుగా అనేక మంది రాసినటువంటి వ్యాసాలు చదివి ప్రసంగాలు విన్నారు. ఆధారమిలా ఆయన ఏం చేశారు అంటే, స్వామినాథన్ గారు అని ఉన్నారు ఈ తమిళ్ హెరిటేజ్ ట్రస్ట్ లో. స్వామినాథన్ గారు, హీ సచ్ ఎ గ్రేట్ మ్యాన్. He himself is a historian. Not only historian, he encouraged many young upcoming historians to flourish in the field of history. Then he also started giving guidance to the people, like what we call Sivasankar Babu was not hesitated to say that he was an amateur historian in the beginning. Then he started taking instructions from వీరు స్వామినాథన్ గారు లాంటి వాళ్ళ దగ్గర, ఇంకా కొంతమంది మన రీసెంట్లీ పద్మశ్రీ రామస్వామి గారి దగ్గర, నాగస్వామి గారి దగ్గర, ఇలా కొంతమంది దగ్గర, ఇంకా మరికొంతమందితో ఆయన ఏం చేశారు అంటే నేర్చుకోవడానికి అక్కడక్కడ ట్రైనింగ్ క్లాసెస్ పెట్టారు. రీజనల్ టూర్ గైడ్స్ ట్రైనింగ్స్ లాగా ఉండేవి. దాంట్లో హీ యాక్సిడెంటల్లీ వెంట్ టు కోణార్క్ టెంపుల్. కోణార్క్ టెంపుల్లో ఈస్టర్న్ గంగా టెంపుల్స్ గురించి ఈయనకు బాగా అక్కడ లబ్ధ ప్రతిష్ఠలైన వాళ్ళు చెప్పినప్పుడు he wanted, yes, to inquire into the Konark temple. Then he consulted a book called New Light on Sun Temple at Konark by Sadashivarat Sharma, Elise Bonner and one more gentleman. Then what happened? He studied the introduction, then got the information on the evolution of architecture in Eastern Ganga provinces or the Odisha. Then he again looked into Konark temple construction, the details, the silpins, migration of sculptors, payment, where from the stone was brought. Then he literally wanted, no, this is my area. I want to pivot myself into exploring the unexplored areas of temple architecture. So that was, according to him, said the real beginning of understanding temple architecture, particularly South Indian temple architecture. After that, what happened was he did a program. That program is tourism facilitator. That is by Incredible India Tourism Facilitator program. Most of the senior people, and he himself was a very what we call senior most bank officer, and he worked with many IT organizations. In spite of that, he also established Techno Bankers, his own organization. He was heading it. In spite of that, he preferred to join as one of the trainees in what we call tourism facilitator. Can you understand? Kitna bada aadmi hai to bhi wo learning is the triggering factor for widening the base of understanding. At that point of time, he became a student, learned many things. Oh, then he wanted to be at least what we call a prominent person in the field. Then again, not only reading books, whatever he read through book, he visited almost all the places that he studied in the books. Then he come to know, and he compared what has been said in the textbook, what is there practically at the temple, Kanchi, then Thanjavur, then Gangai, Konda, Cholapuram, then one more is that Dharasuram, Airavateswara. Though all the four Choleeswaram, he is now the master of all the Chola living temple, the great Chola living temple. One among all the three, I think, are World Heritage Monument. That is one aspect. Another, within one moment, I am now going to close. Then he was also invited by what we call, he did a wonderful program on understanding Indian temple terminology by MIT University has organized a program, and he did 2-level programs in understanding the ground plan and vertical axis of the temple, Talachanda, Urdhvachanda. Then you come to know Garbhagriha, Mandapa, Mahamandapa, then Sabha Mandapa, Nutta Mandapa, Vahanrala, then Dojastamba, Balipita, Gopura. Then vertically, right from Upapita, Adhisthana, Padavarga, Prastara, Gala, then Kota Costa, then upper is our Sekara, Stupi, and many varieties of bhumis. Within that also, Kota Costa Lakshana is not that much easy to understand. For that again he learnt many scholars learning himself, and that is Shilpa Shastras. Then one Kumaran Guru. One Kumaran Guru is a great man, and he gave instructions as far as understanding Shilpa and Agama Shastras. He also well versed in both South Indian Agama Shastras. Now, if you ask a small sloka from Mayamata, he will tell that, sir, this is line number 126 in Bhu Pariksha of Manasara, Mayamata, Vishwakarmiya, Vastu Shastra, etc. So this is a very brief on himself. Thanks, 100 thanks to Kota Telengana Charitrabandham for giving me such a nice opportunity to be part of the program, and my pranams, my vanakams to our Sri Sivasankar Babu Avargal is Thiru Avargal, and he is Babu for heritage. Just hit Babu for heritage. You get more. Hit, get more. Hit, get more. Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Nageshwar Rao from Chennai.
Sir.
Sir, may I tell you a few words?
Haragopal, sir.
One Nageshwar
Okay,
Rao.
sir.
1 minute.
Let him.
1 minute.
Yes, sir.
Sivasankar Babu is a great exponent on Indian Hindu temple architecture, art, and iconography. And Dr. Siva Nagi Reddy garu, sir.
Sir.
Sir, Chandrudiకి ఒక నూలు పోగు. మీరు పుంబావ సరస్వతి.
Yes.
ఆశు కవి కిషోర. మీరు నిద్రలో midnight లో లేపు కూడా, when I request you, different components, organs of Hindu temple architecture, Buddhist temple architecture, అడిగితే కూడా, you love to instantly answer immediately. Sir, మీకు చాలా నాలెడ్జ్ మీ నాలుకలో మీ మెదడులో సరస్వతి దేవి నిలయంగా ఉంటుంది. I wish you all the very best, Reddy garu. God
Thank
bless
you.
you all.
Thank you, Nageshwar Rao, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure and it is my honor. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, now may I ask the esteemed speaker to start the presentation, sir?
Yeah. Thank you, Siva Nagi Reddy, sir. I am close to tears on hearing the words, and having been a learner for a long time, and having been a novice in temple architecture, I have learned a little, and I am today happy, and I think this is an achievement, and this is the encouragement for people like me to get a glowing encouragement and very encouraging words from seniors and the grand Stapati like Siva Nagi Reddy sir, who appreciated and then who spent around half an hour, 45 minutes today morning to talk to me and then understand what made me into this field and how you are doing things and what made me think. I think he has put it in a nutshell in a small way. A few corrections here, like I am understanding something, and whatever I am understanding, I am presenting this to the equivalent people or people who are interested in temple architecture, so that they can also understand things in a simple or in a different way. That is the small activity I am doing. And I am glad that there is some good appreciation for this. The more we spread interest about the temple architecture and the grand temples our forefathers have built, that is what the legacy which we can give it to our next level of generation. So that is the objective with which we are also working. And industry doyens like Siva Nagi Reddy sir and others, and the grand work by Kota Telengana Charitra Brindam. And in particular, I saw the profile of Haro Balsar and then the work done by the team of Katta Srinivas and Kandula Venkatesh and B.V. Bhadragiri. That's a phenomenal work on creating at the grassroots level. Like it is easy to talk sitting in a city and in Zoom and talk about temples, but they are going into the grassroots. They are making things popular. That is a phenomenal work, and I thank you for the great work. And I am glad that I am doing my small contribution in my section to add to this to create awareness. So if people are interested, I am willing to take something more and then do some more detailed discussions on some of the aspects of Tamil Nadu temple architecture and go deeper into detailed training sessions for this. What today we are going to talk is a brief about the South Indian or Dravidian temple architecture, some of the basic components of this, and then how they are taken to the grandest form in the 4 Chola grand temples. So there is the objective. So this is a slightly lengthy presentation. It may go up to 1 hour, and then for some of the points I will try to rush through. The others, there is a lot of material available in the web where you can go through and get details, but this is a gateway. This is primarily creating the spark into something interesting. So that is the objective. With this forwards, I go into the presentation. I'm sharing the presentation now. Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I request the others to keep it on mute so that there are no disturbances and voices. And in case there are some issues or other thing, you can always ping in and break in. At the end of this session, we have around 15-20 minutes for summation as well as queries on this. At the time, we can have a detailed discussion. So the scope of today's presentation is 4 Great Living Chola temples. Why 4? Because UNESCO has only certified 3 temples. Why 4? There is a story of a 4th one. Deliberately, they didn't want to go into UNESCO certification, so they escaped it, and then it is still in Mata control. And technically, whatever classification that belongs to the initial 3, that also fits in a very large scale to the 4th temple also. So, in my view, I always present the 4 Great Living Temples, okay, in terms of the showcasing of the pinnacle of Dravida architecture. Okay, this is the presentation. So before this, my pranams to the resources which helped me creating this presentation, which is an understanding which I have learned from the various sources like Google, Wikipedia, and images from latitude references, and some of the beautiful books by the 3 great Chola temples by Siva Nagi Reddy. There is a special book by Sarkar, Temples of Chola, and Encyclopedia of Indian Temple Architecture by Daki and Michael Mason. That's all. That's all very good references. And the training we received in Tamil Heritage Trust, and then listening to scholars like Professor Shankar Manoj and others, and then Siva Nagi Reddy sir and others who talked about Alampur temple. And these are all inspirations for understanding the different aspects about the Dravida temple architecture, which I have tried to put it in a slightly different form and a different way here. So this will go for around 1 hour. So the scope is we are going to talk a little about overview of Dravida temple architecture. What does it mean? And then how it evolved over various dynasties in Tamil Nadu. And then see these four temples, why are they so great? The common features. And also we go a little more deeper into the uniqueness of each temple, of like Pragadisara, Gangai Cholapuram, Airavateswara, and Kambareswara. If you see this was built in a span of 300 years, and then they are very near to each other, but they are the top four temples in terms of Dravida temple architecture. So the presentation will be in two parts, explaining the components of Dravida temple architecture. Then only you will be able to understand and appreciate the greatness of the temples which we are going to see later. Otherwise, this will be like a huge structure which is grand. You can say that is very big. But beyond that, we won't be able to understand what is the nuances in each of these and how they have excelled in the even in minutest of the components to the great extent. So first, let us go, before we go into this, my pranams to the Shilpis who made the Devaliyas. Normally, when we talk about the movies, we talk about the actors, but we never talk about the directors or the story writers who are the actual blood and other things who visualize these things. And similarly, when we talk about temples, we only talk about the sponsor kings. Rajaraja built it, but Rajaraja didn't build it. This is the Sthapatis who were visualizing these things and then sweat day and night to make it happen. And for that, there is no one single degree. Okay. Nowadays, you can go to BE and then pass civil engineering, and then you are certified to build dams and roads. But for Vishwakarma Shilpis, no such single degree is there. So they need to do so many things like facial expressions and measurement, talamana measurements, body language, ornaments, dresses, dance mudras. And then when it comes to the building, structural engineering, whether this will have the load, the type of rocks, you choose the wrong rock and then you are finished, the entire building collapses. Metallurgy in terms of tools and zoology, when we talk about animals that are being sculptured, you need to know the parts, the body parts, the shape and everything. So they're minute and need to have a very good understanding of chemistry to handle the bonding, coloring and other things, AutoCAD. Now, some of the Sthapatis, like some of the seniors in SKP, they are doing beautiful work in AutoCAD, Lightroom and Photoshop. And the brochures they make, SKP brochures, are done by the Sthapatis themselves. Very high-end brochures that are done in Photoshop with Lightroom, beautiful colors. So Sthapatis are in touch, and then they are in touch with the latest, but they also know the traditional thing. And we can't become like them. But our job is that if you understand and if you appreciate the art and the effort involved in creating a temple, that is the tribute to them. So pranams to the Devaliyas who were the Devalaya builders, the Shilpis, and their great work in this. Now, when we talk about temple architecture, this is not a road science or something. It is a combination of so many things where there are multifaceted. That is what it makes it more interesting. Like when you talk about Indian temple or a Hindu temple, in a way it is slightly different from the other religions, where in other religions, in many places, the temple is a place to worship. Whereas here, when you talk about temple is the place where God lives. So the concept itself is different, and the way we pray, we go, and then we do our rituals, this is totally different. And the concept of temple has got a metaphysical meaning in terms of the lingas, Thula lingas, and other things. and then its comparison to yoga chakras. That is another branch, another understanding. When it comes to the physical sciences, it's a beautiful combination of geometry, various shapes, squares, round, rectangles, and other things, cuboids, pyramids. All the shapes, it is a combination of shapes. So if you technically, if you call a small kid and say that how many geometrical shapes are there in a temple, he will start listing it. So that's the fundamentally, that is how we can break it. This is a beauty of measurements. And then even from the early ages, there have been clear measurements in this, ratios and other things. There is physics involved. The stones, the load bearing, structural strength, chemistry in terms of bonding and alignment. Astronomy, this is perfectly aligned, this one vertical alignment, horizontal alignment. And there are many temples in which on a particular day, on a particular time, every year, the sunlight falls on the sanctum in a particular place. How they were able to do it with such a precision? Now we have magnetic compass. At the time, we never had major compass. So they were observing the sun's rotation through months, and then finally align what is a true east to north and other thing, and the temple is in perfect alignment. And aesthetics, that is the beautiful aspect of the art and architecture of a temple. When we talk about the modern building, the foundation is a square like that, and it is invisible. But in temple, the same foundation, the Adhisthana, is cut out into so many areas. Kumadam, Kandam, and then Kapodam. All these things, basically they serve the foundation, but they had done it in an aesthetic way so that it is so beautiful and then so fantastic to look at. That is what a temple, where it is different from your normal building. So when you look at a temple, this is the same structure done in a very aesthetic way with so much of beauty, so much of colorful vibrance. That is temple. So this is what is we should be looking for when you are going to a temple. When I talk about temples, so primarily in this talk, I am assuming that there are people who are masters, tapadis and other things. And also there are some people who have been attracted to know what is this talk is about and what they are going to explain to me. So in some cases, I am explaining something fundamentally basic and other things, because again, in particularly from the northern region people, there is a confusion between Gopuram and Vimana. In southern architecture, there are three basic building blocks. One is the Vimana, which is the place where the god resides, and it will have circular rectangle kind of an base and three side closed walls and pyramidal things. So this is a Vimana. In South Indian architecture, the entire thing is called Vimana, not this superstructure. The entire thing called the Vimana. Whereas when you go to North Indian architecture, only the superstructure is called Vimana. That is a difference. The second part is for devotion, devotees to pray God and then do the celebration. Normally, the ones attached with the Vimana is all closed primarily for puja and other purposes, and for celebration and other purposes, it is open on all sides. You can see a lot of dams and other mandavas with open sculptures there. And this is something unique to South Indian architecture called Gopura or the gateways, which are structurally similar to the Vimana in terms of rules and other things. But there is a two-way open entry, and only one type of Sala Shikara is there in terms of Gopuram. So over a period, initially the Vimanas were big and the Gopuras were small, and over a period by the time Vijayanagara Nayakas and others came, the Gopuras started becoming bigger and bigger and taller than the Vimana. So to sum up, Vimana is the sanctum where God lies. Mandabas is the functional parts. Without in South India, the mandabas doesn't have any superstructure. It is always flat. And the gopuras are the gateways which are unique to South Indian architecture. Now, basically, when you talk about metaphysical and other things, we have a human body with 6 parts, and a house also can be visualized as a 6 parts, and the temple is also visualized on the same way, like 6 parts, like Shatanga. So your base, your legs is equal to the Adhisthana, and your body up to this is related to the wall of the temple or wall of the house. In fact, this is my old house in Chennai. The third one is the shoulder or prasara, which is equal to the roof part. And there is a neck part here, which is equivalent to the balcony or the grivum in a temple, which is a recessed part. And finally comes the shikara, the head part, or this is the top roof part of this. And there is a hairstyle or this one, this is the stupi here. Where is the stupi here? This is the TV antenna, which can be equal to a stupi for a particular home. So our forefathers visualized temples like a person standing, and these 6 parts are the standard ones in any temple in South Indian. So this is the basic components, and that's why many of the temples are called Shatanga, 6 component temples. Now, having seen the metaphysical and the body comparison, now we are coming to the geometry part. Whatever is the geometry in temple architecture, there are certain basic shapes that are used for the base plan or shikaras or components everywhere else. So these shapes are called by 3 different categories, which are having 3 different characteristics and then used for certain thing. First one is Nagara shapes, which is typically square and rectangle. And the second one is Dravida shape, there is hexagon and octagon. And third one is the Vesara shape, circle, ellipse and marathon. So this is used for Brahma, and this is used for Vishnu, and this is used for Shiva. So this also signifies 3 different characters which are attributed to Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma, and creative and other things. And the next component using geometry is the Shivalinga, which is of 3 parts, where the bottom part is the Brahma part, square part, and then the central part, which is hidden by the bottom, the pedestal, is a Vishnu Bhaga, which is of hexagon type. The part which is available on top is cylindrical. So wherever possible, this component of the 3 combination of the shapes in a part of Shivalinga is always displayed consistently across many of the areas in South Indian temples. Then, having seen the 6 components, the most critical one is a sanctum, which is the Garbhagriha, which is under the Vimana. So normally this is square, or it can be rectangle or apsidal, circular or oblong. And our Shastras describe so many other different forms also, but square is the easiest one. Even though circular is attributed to Shiva, circular is a very tough thing to do it constructively. When you talk about shapes, the other interesting thing is, what is the oldest and easiest shape known to men is square. Square is very easy, 4 sides, all the 4 sides are equivalent, and then easy to measure, and it has got a strong rigidity. So if you see this, many of the early constructions were squares, and pyramids are also is a stacking of squares of reducing size, joining in a pinnacle of a point. So this is the easiest known size. So most of the temples are in square or in variations of square. Later on, some of the temples started having Sandhara Nadi, which is around inside the Vimana, inside the main structure itself, there is circumambulatory path. It has got 2 functions. One, the praying function. The other one, it is also a load-bearing member and a load-bearing technology where the load coming from the Vimana is split up using an arch structure into 2 walls instead of 1 wall. And normally there will be one entrance, and there may be some of the temples there are 4 entrances on 4 sides, or dummy entrances like Ganadwara where only window is there. So if you have 4 entrances, it is called Sarvada Bhadra kind of an Vimana, which is special. Only big Vimanas or big temples have this kind of facility. And when you have this Garbhagraha, there is a linga, and normally the linga's bana, the drain will be facing towards north. So the Abhishekam water will be collected, and then there is a Pranala or Pomunga where the Abhisheka water is collected into a tank. So this is the normally normal components of an sanctum, and there is an Antarala and stairs coming from this to come down if the temple is in a big thing. Now, coming to the components of the Dravida architecture, the lowermost thing is Upapida, which is an optional thing. It is not part of the 6 components. The other 2 components which are optional is Upapida or the Hara, the next one. But Upapida is nothing but a raised platform which is equal to a Janga in the northern architecture. So this is used just to enhance solidity, or you want to raise a visibility to your particular temple. This means that suppose if the temple is in a swampy or a riverside where flooding is happened, for safer side, we also raise the Upapida. So for that also there are lot of, Upapida is basically a pedestal, but again for the load bearing and spreading of the load, there are many components and many classifications based on this. The components of Upapida are similar to the next member, your Adhisthana. So we will see this when we come to Adhisthana. So this is the Upapida part of the Thanjavur big temple. Next one is the Adhisthana. This is primarily meaning the one on which it is placed. So this is what it handles the entire weight of the full granite Vimana, thousands and thousands of tons. And this is where it is spread up in a way. So logically, this load, this is a ground level flat layer of granite. On top of it, you have a strong base of granite which will bear the weight. Logically, this has to come in a very, very, very sloping way. So instead of making a very blind slope, that is where the aesthetics comes in. They have broken it into a lot of components. Each one is spreading further away from the central plumb line, at the same time creating beauty. By changing these components, we can create, people have created 32 plus kind of and different variations of Adhishthanas. Let us see some of the sample components. This is the slab, rectangular base slab called Upana. And then on top of it, this is a flat platform called Jagati, which can be flat rectangle or it can be curved like this. And then the next member is the bulbous member called Muda. It can be a 3-part or it can be circular or it can be 8 or 16 faces. Then you have the Kanda, which is like again, you can visualize this like a human form. This is the neck part, and then there is a extension on top, extension on bottom. On top of it, there can be a Yali frieze, wall panel, or it can be a kapota. So these are the basic components. By flipping these basic components, people have created around 32 different variations of Adhishthanas. But we will see some of the basic ones in the later class. So this is foundation. Then on top of foundation, we have the wall. So when you look at the it is not a simple wall. It is a place for creativity and place where lot of metaphysical symbols and deities and sculptures and historical events, everything is there. From a simple wall, this has become a canvas for showcasing their all. So basically here, we depict a lot of pillars. These are not functional pillars. They are only ornamental pillars. So these are all half pillars as though the other half is on the other side. So this is pilasters. And then we have a lot of toranas where a torana is filled on both sides by 2 quarter pillars. And then it may have a ideal, then it is called koshta, otherwise it is called a simple torana like this. And Deva koshta is there. And jalagas, lot of windows with beautiful carvings. There are different class of carvings on this. And then panjaram. Panjaram is a evolution of a pillar with a cage-like structure on top and a kumbha on this one. This has got a metaphysical implementation of relating to the Amirda, which was created out of churning the Milky Ocean. So that is kept in a kumbha, or the life juice is kept in a kumbha. So this is the metaphysical representation of life. So that is what we can see in a wall. After wall, there is a roof part. The roof part has got multiple components like Uttara, Palaka, Kapota. What I want to highlight here is the Kapota part, which is primarily an extension to protect water, sunlight from affecting the bottom one. So if any water is falling, this will fall and it will fall away from the building. So that the wall and pillars don't get moss and then it become wet and other things. So your Palagai and Uttaram is the horizontal beam, and this is where the cross members join together. And on top of it, you will see a yali or a makara frills. So once you have one Kapota series, that means that your roof is over or one panel is over. So this is how a typical roof looks like. This is the Kapodam, and under that this area is called Vadabi, where a lot of Buddha friezes will be there, and it is very interesting. This is the Nasika, which is normally a remnant of the Buddhist Chaita arch kind of structure. Now, so far whatever we have seen is true for a single Tala temple where, like I explained, after Prastara or the roof, you go to the neck. Okay, but in when you structure a bigger or a larger temple, which is around 60 feet high, 70 feet high, if you put this, it will be very ugly. So what they do is they have a series of small temples stacked like a hara. Okay, so this series of small temples normally is of 3 shapes. Again, back to geometry. One is a square shape, which is here, and other one is a rectangular shape. This is called Sala. This is Karana Kuta, and this is a apsidal. This is an arch on the front, and a square rectangle plus a half square kind of an Gajabrishta apsidal shape. So this is called Panjara. And this is how we start the stacking of small edifices or small temples, one top of other, so that the height of the temple is increased. First component is a Karnakuta, which is normally it will be square shape, and there are certain rules. See, visualize this like your mala or a garland. When you have a garland, you have roses on the corner, you have marigold on this. In between, we have other white lilies and other thing. And then in between, you put some green leaves. And there is a twine or a banana fiber which ties all these things. This is something similar to that. It is a hara of small temples. So the first one, which is like a rose, is the Karnakoda, which is of square type. Okay, this is the square ones on the corner. So this is typically on the corner. So like rose, which is done in the prominent place or in the edge. And then there is a Sala or a Bhadra, which is a rectangular type of an mini temple. And normally in center, it will be only rectangular. So in a flower in the middle, you get the marigold or this one with Jigana. And the third type of decoration, like your white lily or something, is a Panjara, which is an apsidal shikara with the Mahanasi facing the front. So this is optional. It can be there at may not be there. But if it is there, it is always between these two. So there is a logic. So you have three types of flowers, kind of structure, and we know the rules. And the gap in between this is called Ara Antra. Hara Antra, inside space of the Hara. This is a balustrade connecting the gap. Here we may have some Sutra Nasikas or Vruta Sputika something. This is equivalent to the leaves we put in between as a padding in a Hara. So if you visualize this way, it is very easy to remember what is the components of the Hara and this is how structured. So as you increase the length or the height of the temple, instead of from Prasara directly going into the neck, imagine that like our politicians or gods, you have lot of garlands one by one, and then finally the neck and the thing. So this is enhances the beauty of the temple, and instead of blindly adding a tower, this adds a lot of aesthetics to it. So this is the beauty of Dravida temple architecture. It is same, but it is not same. It is different, but it has got the harmony. So we have got the rules, we have got the Panjaras. So KSPH combination is there. Let us see whether the rule holds for the second tier. Same Karnakotas on the corner, and then Panjaras in the middle, and Salas in the center, Salas in the center, and Panjaras in the middle. Same thing when it goes into top. So this is how you can see now it is a one tower, two tower, three tower, like that. So you can call it as a Tritala Vimana. So like that, when you count this Kapota, so if you see this, this is the back side of the earlier wall, and then this is the front side of one wall. So everywhere you have three layers, one wall, and in front of it there is a collection of Hara. So this is the next component of this one. Finally, once you have any number of Haras in our Thanjavur Great Big Temple, as per Agama, we got 14 talas, like up to 14 talas, they are given the ratios. So big temple reaches the 14 tala kind of specification, which no other temple has touched. After this, we have the neck part. So this is how the neck looks like. This is the neck. And then here we have a component called Nasika. This is like an arch. So after the neck, you have the Grivkonam. In the corner, there are animals or bhutas or vahanas. And the shikara can be in various geometric scale. Now, if it is square, it is a Nagara shikara. If it is circular, it is Vesara shikara. If it is hexagon, it is a Dravida shikara. And finally, you have the stupi. So this is how the various components of the temple are there. Again, when you look at the shikara, there are different types of nasikas or arches. Okay, again, depending on the shape of the shikara, the name of the nasika is also different. When you have a Dravida shikara, you have four big nasikas on four cardinal sides. And in some of the temples, like typically in Nagara or apsidal temples, the front shikara also only around is extended. This is a classical feature which originated in Alampur, refined in Pattadakal, and it gradually moved to Orison temples as well as North Indian temples. But in South Indian temples, there are very, very rare occurrences. Lalada Nasika, this is typically for circular or apsidal vimanas. There will be only one Nasika on front, that is called Lalada. Lalada is your forehead. And Kukshi Nasika is the Nasika which is on the side of a Sala Vimana. Normally in Gopurams, the two sides of Nasikas will be Kukshi Nasikas, which are very beautiful ornamental one with the dominant hand. So this is some of the Nasika. The ultimate Nasika is a Sukha Nasika, which is present on the big temple in the front, which is a later period addition. On top of the third floor, there is a grand Himalaya-like of a structure where all the gods are present. So when you talk about shikaras, again, geometry comes in, and we have various shapes. We have square plan and square top. We have square plan and then hut kind of on top. We have square plan with a circular top, and we have apsidal plan with the apsidal top, and a square plan with a polygon top. This is a normal Dravida Vimana, and a rectangular plan with a Sala or wagon top, which is normally used for Gopurams and for Shakti temples. If you want to see all these shapes in one place, within a kilometer, you come to Mahabalipuram, where all the things are available as monolithic rathas. Valayankutti Ratha with a spire, and then with the spire hut plan Draupadi, and then circular top with the shore temple thing, and then apsidal plan Nakula Satadeva, and standard hexagon type Dharmaraja, and Ganesha Ratha and Bhima Ratha with the Sala or wagon top kind of thing. So this is in 7th, 8th century. They have experimented and they have established all the shapes. So by the time Cholas come in, the variation experimentation is done. Now it is going into, from science, you go to the technology or to the engineering. So the focus shifts to grand temples, big temples, lot of embellishment, richness in this one. So there is a period. So if you see this history, let us briefly touch how the dynasties contributed to development of temples. When you see the Sangam period, most of the temples were in wood mortar and brick temples, except a few specimens, we don't see them. Like one in Saluvan Kuppam in Mahabalipuram outside, where we have the foundation is of Sangam period bricks, where on top of it in 500 CE, they have built a temple for Muruga during the Pallava period. Then when it comes to early Pandyas, Pallavas, they experimented a lot in cut-in caves and then structural rock temples and then monolithic and everything. That is the experimentation period. And then when Imperial Cholas came in from 850 to 1250 kind of a period, well ornamented temples, grand vimanas, and then the other key contribution of them is all the old temples which are in brick and mortar, they mostly converted into granite-based structures. So that's why we are not able to see many of the wooden mortar or brick temples, because they have been converted. If you go to North India, we see a lot of brick temples rotting as such. Whereas here in South, there is a lot of conversion that has happened, And that's why we see so many temples, granite temples, even in a small village. You easily can see a temple which is 1,000-year plus old. Then, by the time later Pandyas come in, there is not much work to do inside the Vimana or them. So they start focusing on mandabas and peripheral activities, gopuras and prakaras, and then they close the prakaras, create roofs and other things. And after a brief interregnum where Muslim invasion and destruction of temples were there is a renovation period in Vijayanagaram. And this is where temples were converted into high security places and with the watchtower kind of high-rise gopuras and mandapams, a lot of mandapams were created. And later Nayaka period and Nagarathar period, they were converted into temple towns, 1,000-pillar mandapas, temple tanks and other things are structured. So when you talk about a 1,500-year-old temple in Tamil Nadu, like Egambareswara temple, so it will have contribution from each one of them, and each one of them is distinct. So we should be able to visualize that the sanctum might be of Pallava period, the Mahamandapa might be of Chola period, and the peripheral Shakti temple might be of a later Panda period, and 1,000-pillar and other things from Vijayanagara, Nayaka period temple tank. So it is a combination. The temples have grown without any disturbance. And in particular, like I said in Cholas, this is a period where well-dressed finished granites, no lion motifs, and experimentation in ornamentation in Adhisthana and Hara components, a lot of variations, huge temples. At the same time, if you see the early Chola temples, so much of miniature sculptures in the Adhisthana, in Kandapada thing, only this much, 2 centimeter, 3 centimeter, 3 centimeter, where there is a series of 52, 62 kind of Ramayana panel depicting things. And the simplification of external walls, and then using the external walls extensively for readings. This period contributes to around 70-80% of the entire inscriptions that are available in Tamil Nadu, most of them in the temple walls. So these are the 3 certified, UNESCO certified temples of Gangai Konda Cholapuram, big temple, Gangai Konda Cholapuram and Dharasuram. In addition, we have one more temple called Kambareswara in Dharasuram, in Tribhuvanam, which is also of equal importance, but not included for UNESCO. Now, we have spent around 35 minutes, and now we understand what Dravida temple architecture is and what are the components, how these components evolve. Now you will be in a position to go and see the 4 grand living specimens of Dravida temple architecture. They are the ultimate. Now we will be in a position to understand, appreciate the complexity and grandness of art of these 4 temples. These 4 temples are in a very close proximity, around 30 kilometers range within each other, and all are situated in the Thanjavur Kumbakonam belt. But don't think of covering these 4 temples in a single day. It is not enough. 1 half a day, at least minimum for 1 temple. So it will take minimum 2 days for a reasonably quick analysis of the major aspects. We start with an example of this. So 4 Great Living Chola temples and 3 of them in the UNESCO World Heritage family. One is Rajarajeswaram Thanjavur, Gangai Konda Choleeswaram, and Rajeswaram Dharasuram, and Tribhuvaneshwaram in Tribhuvanam. So these are 4 grand temples which are the pinnacle. But we also call them as a family. When you talk about Rajarajeswaram and one more Rajarajeswaram, they are very sharp, clean, masculine, and then in a clean straight line. So this is the father and this is the son. Now, if you see Gangai Cholapuram, it is not so. It is slightly on a curve, feminine curve. Beautiful. See the gap, see the straight line, and see the feminine beauty. And the same way, Tribhuvaneshwaram also has got a beautiful curved structure. So this is the mother and daughter. So it's a family of father, mother, and son and daughter. In terms of size also, this is around 210 and this is 180 plus, and this is 120, 130 kind of range. So the size also fits. So this is a family of the temples. Let us see in a nutshell, what is their common features? Most of them are named after the king, Tribhuvaneshwaram or Rajarajeswaram, like that. And then they are in worship on a regular basis. And it has, the beauty is, the core is original Chola. But there are a lot of peripheral additions which has been added at a later point of time. And it has been continuously supported by all dynasties. And all of them has got very high basement. And they create a lot of new embellishments like Kumbha Panchara, Deva Koshtas. And the other good thing is, in Mahabalipuram, in many of the sculptures, you have a central sculpture and you have a surrounding sculptures which explains the full story or the additional attendance to the story. This is a standard pattern in Kanji Kailasanath. That model is also followed in a grand way in these four temples, where you have a central sculpture and then all the peripheral activities also explained in the panel around that. And when you talk about the Gopuras, they extensively use Simhamukha finials like grand arches and other things. And then it has got grand steps before the entrance. This is called Savakasantrala. And if you see some of the temples, the first one, Rajarajeswaram and Gangai Cholapuram, they also have porticos above first tala. Mahamandapa and Artha Mandavas are two-tier structure, not a single-tier structure. So normally, if you see older temples, they will build the Garbhagriha, and after that, Artha Mandapa, and then Mahamandapa and other thing, and then the peripheral wall and prakara wall and everything will be built at a very later period. Whereas these temples, from beginning, it is a ground-up project. From beginning itself, it is complete with the full structure. From Gopura up to Tiruchitrumalgai is part of the original structure itself. So it is a well-planned and fully executed temple. So this, in a nutshell, gives the key statistical information for the guys. Like in cricket, statistics also important. When you talk about IPL, the focus is which is the highest run getter, which is the run of the son, like that. We have red cap, orange cap. So here also we can institute red kalasa, orange kalasa, and violet kalasa. So in terms of grandness, the red kalasa goes to Rajarajeswaram, earliest built, the largest Vimana, and the largest number of talas, and Ardha Mahamandapa is 2 talas. This is the uniqueness of this temple. When you talk about the Gangai Choleeswaram, this is built by his son Rajendra, who deliberately didn't want to exceed his father's achievements. So he's slightly watered down and it is slightly less. But again, he proved his individuality by changing the terms. Only Vesara circle, but the same height is reached, almost the same height is reached in 9 talas instead of 14 talas. And here, the number of Deva Koshas also increased. The other interesting thing is the Gopuram, 2-level Gopurams are there. Then we come to the son and the daughter. Airavateswara is a miniature wonder. When Rajarajeswaram is a big wonder, he achieves this through miniature, very small Vimana, almost half size, only 5 taras. But when you talk about kutas, 600 kutas with far more details and lot of details in terms of side sculptures. When you talk about Airavateswara, the entire wall is full of costumes and then so many sculptures in costumes. That is another uniqueness. When it comes to Kambareswara, he is like a bowling kind of a thing, like the violet shikara kind of a thing, where in terms of perimeter wall, the Goburams excel. This is where the Goburams are almost equivalent to the Vimana, and after this period, the Goburams become taller than the Vimana. So this is the 4 different characters of the father, mother, son, daughter family of 4 Great Living Cholas. So this is the common factors. Now, in the next 10-15 minutes, we are going to cover the individual aspects of the temples. Since there is a shortage of time, I'm going to rush up for the next 15 minutes in a visual way, showing you the things which you need to look for. But definitely, I cannot describe these 4 temples in 1 hour, but I can say what are the things you can look into it when you visit these temples next time. So this is like a reminder, or this is like a menu card of these temples where you want to go, where you want to savour and where you enjoy. So this is an overview of a big temple where you have the Maratha wall, and you have the first Prakaram with the first Gopuram, and then second Gopuram and the grand temple, all of them captured in one shot. This is a floor plan where the core temple, the Prakaram, the Gopuram, and the Vimana along with this one is the core initial structure. And maybe this might have been built at a slightly different period later. And this Mandapa and other things are later period additions by Pandyas, by Nayakas, Marathas, and other things. So this is a floor plan where you see that. And this is interesting in a way that we have 36 Poshtamurtis, 64 Poshtamurtis spread across all these things. And then we have directional deities, and then Parivara Devatas, everything is available. So when you talk about big temple, I cannot stop thinking about America. This is like an American temple. Everything is big. They think in a big way. All these things are big. This is when the Gopuram starts becoming big and built in granite and built in the whole structure. So grand ones and grand entrances. And the Nandi, when you cross the Gopuram, you come to a Nandi Mandapa, this pedestal, and the Nandi Mandapa is of a later period. The original Nandi is there in a different corner. When you come on to inner complex, this is the original, up to this is the original structure. This Mandapa is a later period addition, where instead of the direct one, they have also given a, instead of a side entrance, they have given a direct entrance also. After this, you have 2 sets of Mahamandapas. If you can see, there is a remnants of the second tier Mahamandapa extension, which has been damaged and which has been cleaned up. And then you have a 2-tier Bitti, and then you go into 14 talas, and then we have a grand Shikara there. So this is the pinnacle of Dravida temple architecture. This is called Dakshina Meru, the tallest Dravida temple with 14 talas. The first level is a Sandara. When you talk about Sandara, the concept is that inside that Vimana itself, you have a circumambulatory path here, if you see this. This is not, if you see Kanchi Kailasanatha, it is one of the first Sandharas. It has got one level. Here you have two levels and it joins on the third level as an arch. So the load of the entire temple gets split at this point and then spreads into two separate walls. This way it allows you to build larger and taller temples with the granite load on top. So the first level Sandhara contains beautiful paintings and four fantastic idols, sorry, three fantastic idols. And the level 2 contains Karana Shirpas, like dance icons. Out of the 108, around 89 or some sculptures are there in the park around this. We got 21 Devakosas and then 64 Parivara Devatas with one of the largest lingams. How they might have built it. So what, interestingly, it has got a very shallow foundation of 6 feet and with a large grain bed, and on top of it there is a bed of flat granite, and then on this shifting area this is done. So on top of it, if you go beyond that sand, there is a mother rock of granite bed. They have selected the granite bed and built it on top of it and with shifting sand. So this means that it has withstood around 6 or 7 earthquakes in the period of 1,000 years and documented earthquakes which has shattered many smaller temples. And another interesting feature is there is no bonding. There is no metal joints or mortar. It is primarily precision joints with a hook and other things so that the sliding is avoided. And the double Sandhara wall also helps to handle the heavy load without any iron beams or something. So one theory proposes that they were using mud slope to access the higher point. So the option is first build up the blocks, rough blocks, and then build it at the top and then complete, and then like a monolithic temple, start giving finished structures from top and then gradually come downwards. That's why we see the top and other things are on a fully finished stage, whereas in the bottom, in the first and second floor, there are certain areas where even the rough stone polishing is still open. So this cannot be replaced at a later point of time. So the logic is that they might have taken a top-down approach. This is unlike Konark, where they used scaffolding and pulleys to stack the blocks and then go to the pinnacle. So you can see some of the unfinished work in the ground tala and first tala, where you see they have put in the blocks and then they have not completed the sculptures for that. Whereas if you see the top and other things, this is fully complete sculptures. So like I said, American way, giants, big size. The linga is big, the Dwarapalaka is big. And when you go in, you also need to see from this point in the first ground into the Sandhara space. This is the inner space. It is hardly 5 to 6 feet width, where there is a lot of paintings. They were seeing earlier Nayaka period paintings, and when they were checking this, when they scraped it, they found Chola period murals on behind it. So they have spent years in slowly taking out the Nayaka period painting scraps, and then they unearthed Chola period paintings, and then there is a huge documentation and a nice book by P.S. They depict Rajaraja, his guru, and the Chidambaram temple coronation, and many scenes from Shiva Purana. And in the Sandhara, we also see the 4 beautiful sculptures. And this is in particular is a beautiful sculpture on the western side. And in the evening sunset light falls on this and makes this Sandhya Tandava dance a worthwhile proposition. And like this, there are many beautiful sculptures with attendant supporting sculptures all over the place. When you talk about the Adhisthana, which itself is an artwork, this is one of the highest pedestals or the Upapitas in Dravida temples, and it has got a Pratibandha Adhisthana and Kapodabandha Upapita. So Kapodabandha Upapita, Pratibandha Adhisthana. The purpose of this is to spread the load and then expand it gradually into a base. Instead of doing an unartistic way of slopes, which we currently do in our buildings, they have done in an aesthetic way by various shapes and other things. And then they have used this space also for creating extensive inscriptions. This is the side view and this is the front view. The uniqueness of this temple is that instead of one-story bitti or the wall, it has got a two-story, and the lingam is in this size. And on top floor, we can also walk. And then in the second floor, and in the second floor top, the two walls join. Till such time, there is a circumambulatory path inside this area. This is the view, if you see from the top, which even Rajaraja would not have seen. See the symmetry and see the way the kutas, salas, and panjaras slowly get smaller in size over the 14 talas and then allied into a grand shikara. This is all carboning. This is the view from second floor. From inside, if you look at this, this is carboning. Again, the Shivalinga concept and the carboning concept is also implemented here. This is called Katalika Karanam. And this is like a banana sheet where it slowly reduces to a pinnacle. If you see this, it starts as a spire. After 3 or 4 talas, it goes into hexagon. And then gradually when it touches this, the innards almost resembles a circle and then ends in a circular Gribam. So this is the carboning part, which also ensures that the load is gradually expanded down and then brought it into the two walls. The carboning doesn't happen at the Vimana, it also happens at the Gopura also. Gopuras also are bowl inside with the amount of carboning with the central pillars and then gap in between. Because by design, Gopuras also planning to raise at taller and taller. So the more they make it as a lighter and rigid structure, they can rise it to a larger height. So this is how the innards of a Gopura will look like. And you see the Vimana from south, we have this two structures, and then this is the Vimana, this is the Antarala, and this is the Mahamandapa, and this is where the entrance to the paintings and the 4 great sculptures are there. Now, when you go into the southwest corner, we see the Ganapati temple, which is a later Maratha period addition. And if you see the northwest corner, we have a beautiful Subramanian temple, which is an Akra period. And by the time the sculptures and art has improved a lot, the chisels have improved, you can see the amount of finer sculpturing and the level of detail available, which is 2 times or 3 times dense than the main temple. And here the Sakti temple is the Parvati temple, which is a later Pandya period addition, where the core temple is Pandya period, and this mandapa is later Naka period. When I talk about big temple, there is a reason for saying that it is big temple. Even the Gomukha is big, the size is big, the Abhisheka water is so much, and the Bodhakana who is holding it is searching. See the tank size. It is like a swimming pool. So this is Brihadiswara temple for him. Now, this, having seen the biggest one, we will quickly cover the other two temples in another 10 minutes, and then we will finish. The next one is built by his son Rajendra. It is called Gangai Cholapuram. Here you can beautifully see the feminine curve. This is very clearly evident, and how gradually it goes into a beautiful circular one. This is the plan, and this is the gateway. The original Vimana is intact, but the Gopuram has been damaged, and it has been salvaged to build a dam nearby. And once you enter, we see the grand later Nayaka period Nandi done out of brick and mortar, and you have the later period Dvajastambha. This is a plan where you enter from this, and then you have grand two Mahamandavas, and then we have one Ardhamandapa, and then we have the Vimana, and we have several subsidiary shrines. The beauty of this temple is a kind of giant sculptures, lifelike sculptures. Some of the noteworthy sculptures is the Saraswati temple, Saraswati sculpture, and that is a Chandesha Anugraha Murti, and they also compare this as a metaphor for Rajaraja crowning Rajendra, making his hair, and a beautiful dancing Ganapati. Like that, there are many sculptures. These are all good examples. All of them are very big in size, but they have attention to the detail. And like the Rajaraja temple, this has got also a grand base. If you see the sloping, see the way the foundation sloping has been done in a very aesthetic way with Yalivari and then Kumudam and Padma Jagati and Vedi Padra, like a Vedi kind of structure where Gala Kampa and then we have frieze of lion. It is again a beautiful implementation. Here, instead of the Jagati, the Kumuda is being used for inscriptions. Here, another interesting spot is that when you talk about the Vimana, this is beautiful curve. And the other thing is the Vimana is also visualized like a Sthula Linga, where when it goes into this, it starts as a square. And then slowly by this time, it becomes a hexagon. And when you reach this part, this is actually a circular shape. If you look at from the top, you can visualize this. This has got also the inner Sandhara structure, where you can go to first and second tala, and you can see the Kadalikarna. So this is the hole through which you climb up in these small things. And this is the first floor Sandhara passage, and this is the area on top of the linga. So you cannot directly walk in, and you can go circular along this, and from the top you can actually look at the linga. And this is the Sandhara passage on the second floor, where you can see that these two walls join together. This is like a pyramid walk, where this is the point where it joins. And from here, the load is getting split into the two big walls. And this is the Kathalika Karana, where you can clearly see the rectangular space slowly getting converted into hexagon, and then gradually becoming into a circular in a Sthula Linga concept. And here, this has got a two-wall structure. Like instead of having one bitty or one wall, it has got a two-wall or a two-tala structure for the main sanctum, and then it goes into the haras. So if you see this, here you have the two talas, and then if you cut it up into components, you have Adi Tala, and then you have second Tala, and this is the Vedika on top of it, and this is the first Tala postures, and then you have a Hara of one Salai, and then one Panchara, and one Karnakota kind of components. So if you vertically split among, this is the Salapati, this is the Karnapati on two sides, and then this is the Panjarapati, and then the gap is called Salilantra. And this is normally used as a water course where all the water drains through this gaps and channel and then goes into the water storage on this. So see how much of detail and fine tuning you have done. And here also you see some of the things it is semi-finished, whereas here on top it is finished. So normally this is the approach taken for big temples and finish it from top to bottom. And then this also contains the two-tier prakara. This is only the remnant of the wall. The rest has been taken, it has been damaged, and in an agreement reached with the locals, the British has taken this stone for building a river dam on Kolidam, very nearby. Now we go to the third temple. This is Airavateswara temple, which has got a very, very small gopura. This is now we are coming into from a grand scale, we are coming into the miniature world. Gopura is very small, but beautiful. The Nandi Mandapa, instead of having it like a simple one, they have built it in grand scale, like a temple itself. The Balipida itself is like a temple, and with a Ganapati housed inside and Balipida on top. Here we have a musical stone steps. The moment you have a musical stone steps, our guys, we are not fit for it. So we jump down and then we strike it with hammer. Now, because of this, it has been put under cage, and only in selected areas, ASI guys show it. This is the plan of this temple. Once you enter, the interesting part is, unlike the other temples, there is no direct entrance, and the entrance is through sideways, and then you enter into the Raja Gambira Mandapam, and then another Maha Mandapam, and then Ardha Mandapa, and then you go into the sanctum space. And it has got a prakara, lot of constructions in the prakara, and this is how, because it is a very enclosed space and other thing. Earlier, this used to be a temple with 7 prakaras, and then over a period, everything has been enclosed, and the level of the temple has become lower than the surrounding area. So, lot of water gets collected every time rain comes in, and it becomes like a beautiful floating temple, like an Amritsar kind of thing. So, this is the view of the temple. And this is a view of the haras and then ornamental shikaras on top of the Ardha Mandapa and Maha Mandapa. This is a view from first floor. And it has got beautiful Yali Hasta steps where a lot of ornament. The another interesting component is that, see the round kind of things. This is not a random thing. This is a deliberate thing. Currently, in our modern day things, for illumination at light, we get focus lights. But during olden days, what they used to do is, this area will be filled in water. On the middle, they will put one small earthen pot lamp. The lamp light is reflected by the water surface, and it will be spread up into the more area where the limited available light is spread up into more area. So imagine the entire area light up in small earthenware lamps during the night. Beautiful sight, and that is ancient lighting. If you see the Adhisthana, again the same concept of load bearing and load spreading, where it gradually increases in step, and see the way it is ornamentally done. It has got a Kabodam on the Adhisthana because Kabodam is a primary one. You got a Vritta Kumuta and Padma Jagati, and you have Kabodabandha Upapida with a lot of ornamentation. The Yaliviri and other things is becoming more ornamental and stage. Another interesting thing about this temple is the 64 Nayanmar. Like the sages in Telengana or some of the Bhaktas in North India, there are 64 devotees of Shiva, which are detailed in Periya Puranam by Sheklar, and who worshipped Shiva and got into heaven. So their story is built into very small sculptures all around the place, 64 Nayanmar stories in a circular fashion, detailed in each of this Vedika portion. There is a documentation available in some of the things about what the story depicts and how they are able to convey the entire story in a small area like this. This is something which we need to look for this temple. And another interesting thing about the Dharasuram Vimana is, again, even though it is a smaller Vimana, they have tried to implement the Sthula Linga concept here in shapes. Again, coming back to geometry. Normally, I said that the Karnakutas here are normally square in shape. Okay, but there is an exception, and Agamas also allow this exception. They have used this expression to the core. If you see this, the lower ones are square, this is square. Suddenly one below that it becomes hexagon, and the top one becomes circular. Again, a representation of a Sthulinga by presenting Brahma Bhaga, Vishnu Bhaga, and Rudra Bhaga. Square, octagon, and circular. So this is some of the variations and unique things we need to look at this temple. And this temple is famous for miniatures and beautiful sculptures of Bhairava, and then Lakshmi, and then Nayanars and Ganga. Like that, there are many beautiful sculptures. These are some of the examples. This Mandapa, Raja Gambhira Mandapa, is full of Chitrakanda pillars, which has got miniature stories about Skanda Purana in each of these kandams or the squares. We have a lot of beautiful stories and small temples available. This is something which you need to see. And another uniqueness is that this is where Dharasuram is, where till 10th century, there are no separate Shakti temples in Tamil Nadu. It is assumed as part of Shiva, and it will be worshipped as a deity, as a Uchchavamurti. Or if you see Pallava period, behind the Linga, it will be represented as Shiva, Parvati, and Skanda, Somaskanda. But by 10th century, slowly, all temples started having a separate Shakti or Parvati temples. So what they do is, in the existing Mandapa in one corner, the north side of the corner, they close 3 sides and put the Shakti temple. But this is the first temple where a separate Shakti temple was built as part of the original complex. So this is one of the beautiful Shakti temples that is built from ground up. Now we come to the last temple in the trio, which is not a UNESCO certified monument, and they deliberately chose not to, and then it is in control of a Mata, and the other things are in control of ASA. This is Tribhuvanam, another 25 kilometers, 20 kilometers from Kumbakonam. Again, this has got a grand, beautiful Gopuram full of local stories, and it is a joy to analyze this. And the temple has got dancing Karna sculptures in the Gopuram entrance. And this is the plan. Again, like Dharasuram, this also has got no direct entrance, only side entrance. And then we enter through a chariot mandapa, and then we go to the Mahamandapa, cross one more Mahamandapa, and then we have Atha Mandapa, and then you see this. If you see the Adhisthana, one of the beautiful Adhishtanas, which is called a very rich Adhisthana, called the Sri Bandha Adhisthana, where we have a Kapota, we have this one, we have Yadivari, and then we have extended Kumuta Jagati, everything. And one of the rich Kabodabhadra Upapidas, where you have very, very extensive Kabodabhadra. Sorry for the low resolution. I couldn't find a suitable angle, so I have used a low resolution things. And again, Tribhuvanam temple is a very good, beautiful temple with the colorful structure. And again, it is a feminine temple with a slightly curved one. And the story is that they wanted to avoid UNESCO certification. So they did coloring and other things to fail on one of the UNESCO criteria, so that it is no longer eligible for the heritage status. So it is still under Mata control. This is where the Gopura starts becoming bigger and almost equivalent to the Vimana. And from this point onwards, they become bigger and bigger. This is a panoramic shot where you see the Gopura, the Savaka Santrala, the Mahamandapas, the Ratha Mandapas, and 2 levels of Gopuras. So the most colorful and ornamental and beautiful Gopuram with very, very fine-tuned and detailed deities and appropriately colored. But again, sadly, this is get to disqualify. See, you still see Vruttaspatikas, and then we still see a lot of colorful sculptures inside the mini temples. And you should zoom and then enjoy each and every piece. Ideally, what I recommend is go to the southeast corner of the temple, and then there is a nice pedestal and place where you can sit down, use a binocular or a zoom, and start enjoying each and every sculptures. You can easily spend 2 hours there. And this is the Chitra Mandapa and the Kacha Sopana with the historical sculptures. This Mandapa has got a lot of ornamental sculptures which depict Kulotunga III period, where he conquered the Pandya kings, the Pandya king kneeling before his throne, and how he overcome all the kings and then become an absolute monarch at a very late period of Chola rule. So this has also led to the anger. In another 30-40 years, the Pandyas take revenge, and then the entire Chola dynasty is rooted. See the Pandya king kneeling before the Simhasana of Cholas. And the beautiful Adhisthana is also supplemented by 3-level Gomukha, first level, second level, and third level. And additionally, this is where the Sarabesara concept comes in, and there is a separate temple for Sarabesara also. So this covers the second part of the temple darshan, 4 grand Chola temples, how they are common, and what are the uniqueness and different things of this one, and a brief tour of the temple, so that next time when you visit them, you know what are the unique things to look at all these 4 places. So with this, I finish this. I have taken a little more time, but it is such a long and interesting subject that the time flies. So if you need any doubts, any questions and other thing, you can connect me on my mobile, or in this one, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Babu for Heritage, and then you will be regularly getting updates. All my earlier presentations are also available there. Thank you very much. Thank you, and thanks for sharing this opportunity. And I am available for any queries or questions and feedback from this.
Sir, in the chat room, there is a question. Please, from Jadhav Vijay Kumar, sir, please explain the Talamana ratio of Vimana in connection with the other components of the temple like Garbhagriha, Moola Vigraha, and Dhajastambha measurements ratio.
There is a full session by itself. But what I can explain here is that there is a base ratio, which is the width or the circumference of the Garbhagriha, which is the base. This is arrived at by various calculations, and there are thumb rules depending on the nakshatra of the sponsor and other things. They arrive at this value. All other calculations are dependent on this. Your height of the Vimana can be 2 times or 3 times, 2.5 times, 1.5 times of this base value. And similarly, the first tala, second tala, the moment you say height, then for this height, you can also say how many talas are possible. And if you take the talas for each tala, what is the ratio from the earlier tala? All these calculations are there. They have been mentioned as sutras, Sanskrit sutras with the metric, and then this has been explained in detail. If you start reading Mayamata or Kashyapa and other things, they have got extensive documentation on this. This has been deciphered, and there are some books based on the English and Tamil translation. So I also take a 7-day training program on Dravida temple architecture. In this, I also briefly take around a half-a-day session on this Talamana calculations. It is a fairly complex thing. It requires some amount of explanation with the visuals so that you understand that. When you talk about understanding in temple architecture, it is level 6 or level 7.
Okay, sir.
Sir, here, Bhadragiri ji, a little supplemental to our Yadav Vijay Kumar Yadav question ka, sir has given answer na. I have a supplemental information to this, kindly, if you permit me.
Please, sir. Please.
Yes. Thanks to Professor Sivasankar Babu ji, sir. Regarding the measurements of the temple, it is called Dandamana, not Talamana. What is Danda?
Yes.
Prasada Bahya Vistaram Yattad Dandamuchyate. This is the very first standard unit for Talachanda and Urdhvachanda. That is, if you want to extend right from Garbhagriha to the Prakara, you have to take this Manasutra. We call it as Manasutra. That is the width of the backside wall of the Garbhagriha of any temple. From that becomes a standard measurement, Dandamana. From that Dandamana, on plan you proceed further according to Padavinyasa. That is one hand. On the other hand, we go upwards, right from plinth to finial, Upanadi Stupi Paryantam. That is actually we go according to, as you said, 1 1/4, 1.5, 1 3/4, and 2 times. That is, in Mayamata it says Shantikam, Paushtikam, Jayadam, Adbudam, Sarvagamikam. These are the 5 categories of temple prasadas on which the measurements will go on increasing 1/4 per each danda. So this
Yes,
is
sir.
Talamana, Dandamana only we have to use the term, and the Talamana is used only for iconometry.
Sculptures.
Just for the sculpture. So this is only
Correct.
supplemental, sir. Thank you.
Dandamana. Yes, sir. See, this is where the difference between your banker and Sthapati is coming up. Okay. Currently, the way I want to explain is without using the terms in simple words. But again, sometimes the precise definition helps, like Talamana and Dandamana, and these terms makes it clear. Once you start learning these terms, even though it requires usage of Sanskrit, when you go from one Dravida architecture to other architecture and other areas, it is easy to understand because most of the terms are common across all these things. So that way, I hope I have explained this using very simple terms, that there are ratios, and there are no rigid ratios. That is the beauty of it. It can be 1/4, it can be 1.5, it can be 2 times. Again, it is given to the liberty of the Sthapati. And the Agamas also say that if you want to enhance the beauty of this, you can bypass and you can have your own measurements at your own risk. That also it permits. But most of the temples are within the variations that are given. For example, if you see the earlier traditional Chola temples, Chola Gopuras, they might have taken 1 to 1.25 kind of an ratio and then had very wide and flat Gopuras. Whereas when it goes to the Vijayanagara Gopuras, they take the other extreme, 1:2. So they have 2 talas of Upapitam and other things, which takes a Gopura to a taller height. And then they take 1:2 ratio where your Gopuras become so tall and lean. So both variations are possible within the ratios. That is the beauty of the Agamas which we have mentioned.
So here also, sir, the Sthapatis enjoyed little bit of freedom. Stapati nam yukti bhukti macharet.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Sir, I think there are no questions at all. I'll request me.
Yeah,
Siva
there
Nagi
is
Reddy
one
sir to
question.
sum up
One
the-
question in chat from Meera Venkatesh. What is the difference between Antarala and Artha Mandapa? Okay. See, Antarala is a passageway and Artha Mandapa is a mandapa which is smaller. Normally just next to the Garbhagriha with an Antarala or without an Antarala. The purpose of Artha Mandapa is predominantly for the people to stand and worship.
Okay, sir.
And there is a subsidiary question on Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma connection with basic shapes. So, like I said, Vishnu is assigned with hexagon, Shiva is assigned with circular, and Brahma is assigned with square. So, accordingly, there are shapes, there are gunas, and there are structures assigned to different shapes.
Okay, sir.
There is one more question by Jiva
It is half of the way, sir. From Hyderabad to Nagarjuna Sagar. Exactly 70 kilometers.
Yeah,
they
there is
say
one
that
more.
what is the difference between Shiva and Vishnu temple?
Somebody is talking on mic. Can you put it on mute, please?
Sir, it is muted all, so kindly unmute and talk. Yes.
మళ్ళీ పోతున్నాం.
శ్యామ్ సుందర్ గారు మీరు మ్యూట్ చేసుకోండి. మ్యూట్. ఓకే సార్.
Agama structure wise, there is no difference between Shiva and Vishnu temples.
Yes.
The only variation is when you have Sayana Shiva, normally the Gopura, the Vimana might be a Sala Vimana or a rectangular shape, or when we have more than one deity, that is going into a rectangular shape.
Yes.
And Shakti temples also go into sometimes on a rectangular shape. Other than that, structurally there are no changes. And in the Koshta Devadas, the rules, the Koshta Devadas for a Shiva temple and Koshta Devadas for a Vishnu temples, they differ, because primarily that structure is based on the mandala, the Vastu mandala you prepare, and then what deities you are putting in what location. That rules vary between a Shiva temple and Vishnu temple. So this is primarily in terms of placement of Upadevatas. But in terms of construction of Vimanas, there is no change. And, the Agamas also mentioned what is the Devatas to put on east side, west side, north side. A convention in Shiva temple is that in the north side of the Vimana, Brahma related sculptures will be there, Brahma or Muruga. On the west side, it will be normally
Lingodbhavam.
Yes, sir.
Pachimam Lingodbhavam.
Yeah. Later period, south it shifted into Lingodbhava. Earlier it was Vishnu. By around the 7th, 9th century, they started replacing Vishnu with the Lingodbhava. And in south, it is always reserved for Dakshinamurti or Shiva related angles. So that is a convention in Shiva temple. And in Vishnu temple, normally there is a reverse convention where you put Narasimha and then Sanika Vishnu and also Bhuvaraga temple, Bhuvaraga kind of construction, Varagamurti. So that will be the Koshta Devatas in a typical Vishnu temple. But in terms of the structure and other things, there are no differentiations.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir, Siva Nagi Reddy, sir, please.